Hello, I'm Cindy Ehrenberg-Seltzer, President and CEO of the Children's Services Council of Broward County. Welcome to another edition of Future First, Focus on Broward's Children. Every child deserves the opportunity to grow and thrive in a safe, nurturing, and healthy environment. Besides the immediate harm to the victim, the consequences of abuse and neglect are felt across the entire community. It does take a village to raise a child in a safe and nurturing environment. So how do we go about creating and maintaining a safe community for the sake of our children? This is the subject of our conversation today. Joining me are Dr. Rosalind Osgood, Broward County School Board member, Dr. John Wright, Medical Director of Broward County's Child Protection Team, Neva Rainford-Smith, Assistant State Attorney in charge of the Sex Crimes Unit and Child Abuse Unit, and Ashaki Hayes-Morris, Clinical Supervisor and Manager of the HOMEBUILDERS program at Henderson Behavioral Health. Later in the program, we will hear from Lauren Book, founder of Lauren's Kids and the Walk in My Shoes campaign. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
It's really wonderful to be surrounded by people who have devoted their entire careers to defending and protecting children. Dr. Osgood, I want to start with you because you have taken on that role of community organizer, child advocate, now school board member, and leader of the Change movement. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, Cindy. The Change movement is a movement that's built around the acronym CHANGE, which means children have a need to grow every day. I believe that if every adult makes a commitment to understanding that children have a need to grow every day and that we all have a responsibility to create opportunities for children to grow every day, I believe that it would take us to a place in this county where educating, empowering, and equipping our children will become priority number one. It would allow us to ensure that we have a successful future. So what we're doing with the Change movement is we're trying to put that acronym on the mind of every single person in Broward County. Another component of it is a community engagement component where we are strategically organizing community forums and activities that engage the community in different types of dialogue. Dr. Peter Block says in his book, Building Community, A Sense of Belonging, that if we have different conversations, it will create different ideas and different strategies. So we are hosting a series of community forums all throughout this next upcoming year to talk about things that we don't normally talk about, especially in the African American culture. A lot of things as it relates to sexual assault, sexual abuse, child abuse, cancer, we just don't talk about it. So we have put a system in place through the Change movement that we create environments that we have these type of conversations so that we can all do a better job as it relates to protecting our children and making sure that we have created environments for them to grow every day. When I look at this issue that we're talking about today, any type of psychological abuse, abandonment, sexual abuse, any type of abuse is a direct barrier that prevents children from growing and maximizing their potential in life. So we certainly are grateful for you and the work that you do in raising this issue. And I think that we have to move to becoming more solution-oriented, where we talk about it, we address issues not only with the children, but as well with the perpetrators. It's oftentimes a lot of parenting and lack of parenting issues that are involved. So it is an issue and a crisis in our community. And we can no longer just leave it to those that work in disciplines to try to prevent child abuse. But it has to become important to every single person in our community, whether it's the faith-based community, law enforcement, the school board, wherever we work or whatever sector of community it is that we are tied to with our expertise. We must come together in forums like this and create new conversations that will generate new ideas and new strategies that will allow us to create environments for our children to grow every day. Change. Children have a need to grow every day.
That's
Good.
awesome.
And as a follow-up to Dr. Osgood, my position is on the prosecuting end, as you know. But to follow up on what she said, not only is it that we prosecute, we also have to look at the parents that are involved. She mentioned a lack of parenting. When the cases come into the state attorney's office, it's really an exercise of prosecutorial discretion in addition to the application of law, we look at everything. We look at the dynamics of the family. We look at who's doing the abuse, the types of abuse, the types of injuries, the multiplicity of injuries. And in making that decision, we not only factor in, it's not just about getting the conviction for the child abuse, it's making sure that the family has services. If there is no case filed on a child abuse case, then the criminal system, the criminal justice system, has no authority to enforce services to make sure that the families get services. So it's really a balancing act that we do. It's not just about prosecuting, but making sure that services are provided. And Dr. Wright, we work in tandem. He can follow up with that and explain as to what we do with regards to staffing when we make those decisions. We do it on a weekly basis with regards to discussing the cases that come in, so I'll let him pick up from there.
I think I commend you for getting the conversation started, and that's a very important aspect in prevention, because I think people often, babies will come into this world, there's reproduction without the plan to nurture a child. Mm-hmm. So, just straight reproduction is pretty biological, but then you have to take care of this little one. And there are common things that trip people up if they don't understand normal behavior and normal development. The most risky time for babies is in the first 3 years of life. This is when we see the most fatal child abuse. Mm-hmm. And this is when, when the child is not really being looked out for because they're not in school. No one else is there to see what's going on. So that isolation is hard to break into. So it's really important to have a lot of community support for young families and people with young babies. So the faith community, as well as numerous service agencies, Healthy Mothers Health, I won't name them all. There's a long list.
Yes.
So there's plenty of service agencies and plenty of help and community support out there for people to utilize.
Can I just pick up on that for a second? Because I think your point, Dr. Osgood, that especially in the African American community, mm-hmm. but this is true everywhere, no one wants to talk about it. And there's also a sense, even though we say babies don't come with a handbook,
manual,
you really don't understand until you've been parenting just how hard it is. I know myself, I talk about this a lot, I'm the mom to a 6-year-old, I babysat all the time, I'm an aunt, I thought I knew it all. But boy, it is just 1,000 times harder than I ever thought it was going to be. And you have to know when to ask for help. And I think that's not an easy thing to do, to ask for help. So to turn to your faith community, to call for services, to get that help in place before you harm that child, before that crying or that back talking or that refusal to do what seems so normal, I'm going to feed you, you're going to swallow, that's what you do, right? You don't spit food back in somebody's face. Right. If you're not prepared for that developmental reaction, you're going to get mad. You're going to want to strike back, but that baby can't take it.
Right.
And programs like the HOMEBUILDERS program, funded by the Children's Services Council, but run magnificently by Henderson and by you, can come in and help.
Yeah, specifically, the program is called PUP, which stands for Preventing Unnecessary Placement. And so Henderson has collaborated with CSC to be able to run this program, which is followed by the HOMEBUILDERS model. So with that program, it falls in with you, Dr. Wright, in regards to teaching the parents the techniques, the tools, the intervention, in regards to getting in there and hands-on. We actually call it the super nanny, because we're really hands-on. We're with them 8 to 10 hours a week for 28 days. We become almost part of the family. Mm-hmm. And so with that, with my clinicians, they're in there with the family, teaching them things that most people would think would be common sense, but it's not. It's all about what their background is, what their upbringing are, what they learned as a child. It's what they bring into their environment as adults raising their own kids. And so with that model being put in place, we're able to be hands-on with them in the home, in their environment, to make sure that safety is paramount. But after safety, we want to make sure that they're learning the skills to make sure their children are safe and that to make sure they have no more BSO involvement, making sure that there's no more calls of police to the home, making sure that their kids making sure that they're taking care of the necessities that make sure that the kids are going to school with clean clothes, with food, eating nutritious meals, making sure they're meeting all their appointments, taking care of the children's basic needs, the baby's basic needs. Some of the stuff it has to be taught, and it's not just, well, you should know. I've had parents with seat belts, the car seats. Some of them don't even know how to buckle a seat belt. Wow. That's something that has to be taught.
And I think it goes and it speaks to a bigger issue, and I'm just going to take the liberty and step in this door. I think we live in a time where our perspective of community and family values have shifted. We have a large population of younger people that are having kids.
Much younger.
And I know when I look at it from a faith-based community, we can never get beyond who the baby daddy is or the fact that they're wearing their pants halfway their rear end. We stay focused on the wrong thing, that we miss the opportunity to meet the need of the child. So we have a younger generation who listens to a different type music, they dance to a different beat, and we have to find a way to embrace them and empower them and to have high expectations of them. When I was growing up, I was a very slow child, very undesirable child, but my grandmother had high expectations. When I made bad choices and bad decisions, there were consequences, but there was always a push and a demand for me to be better. And I think when we look at a lot of the children that are raising kids, it's obvious that they need our help. And I think we have to find a way to reach them and help them instead of waiting for them to come to us. From a school board perspective, we just repurposed 5 schools that have been failing kids for 10 years. And a part of that repurposing, our superintendent, who's just a dynamic leader, realized that we won't be able to effectively educate children unless we begin to address the social needs that they often come to school with. So we've transformed what used to be Lauderdale Manors Elementary School into a whole social service site where parents can go there and get counseling, they can get food, they can get clothing, they can get whatever they need to be successful in life. As we look as individuals, I think we all can agree that there are times when life is just absolutely difficult. We've managed to put systems and structures in place to help us. I remember when I had my battle with substance abuse. It was only through various organizations and individuals investing in my life that I was able to rebuild my life. So if we can shift back to change and creating environments for children to grow every day, I think it obligates us all to help these parents that are 20 and 21 with children without jobs. They deal with anger issues. I think just as a society, we don't know how to resolve conflict properly. It's why, people put up their middle finger when somebody cut them off in traffic or if somebody speaks a different way. We have to move to a place where love and genuine compassion begins to lead our decisions as to how we respond to each other, where when we see someone who is deficient or in need, that we move to a place of being a good Samaritan and we go to help them and not continue to just pass them by.
We also, I'm sorry, I need to cut you off for a second because we have to shift a little bit to also empowering the child to be able to speak out when they are experiencing abuse. And to get us to that, I want to hear now from Lauren Book, who turned her horrific personal experience of sexual abuse as a child into a vehicle for prevention and healing by founding Lauren's Kids and telling her story in a book called It's Okay to Tell. That horrible story can be really instructive. And she was interviewed earlier this year during the Broward stop of her annual Walk in My Shoes campaign, where she takes her message on foot from the Keys to Tallahassee.